Hey guys, Hannah Mouse 1 here, and in this video I will be making a paper clay Sooga from the game Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I'm starting off by just mixing up some paper mache mixture, which is flour, water and a small amount of salt, and then I just massage it into paper until it becomes a nice smooth consistency. I start off by making the torso of Sooga, which I just use some basic male torso anatomy references on my computer screen and just started bulking up. A lot of this ends up getting hidden by his arms and the armor, but it is useful to have it under here so proportions are accurate and stuff. So even if it doesn't end up being seen in the final piece, it's 100% not a waste of time to focus on anatomical accuracy. Also, it's a great learning study. If you always just don't bother with what you don't see, then you won't learn how to do it. So it was actually a lot of fun just to learn how to make all the muscles and bulges of the male torso. Sooga is really buff, so I had to give him a full 6-pack and stuff. So yeah. I just start building everything up, just trying to copy the studies I could see as closely as possible. And then I go on to making the arms. These are going to be folded in front of him. So I start with just making the forearms and upper arms in 2 separate pieces and allowing those to dry. I make a ball for the head for now. He doesn't have any facial details, he's wearing a mask. And then I go on to the legs, which I do in much the same way as the arms, just making them separately. I then attach the arms to the torso at the shoulders with just some sticky paper mache. If you want your paper mache to be stickier, just add more of the mache mixture to each piece of paper. The more liquid is in it, the stickier it gets. Also, a flour-heavy mixture tends to be stickier than a water-heavy mixture. I then attach the head and legs in much the same way, just blending everything in and allowing everything to stick in place using the paper mache mixture and just blending it out with this wooden clay tool thing that I have. Yeah, I just build up the anatomy as much as just by copying the studies, focusing on where muscle masses and bulges and all that happen. And then I go over everything with a layer of PVA glue to kind of seal all of this in as best I can. And then while that's drying, I had work on some of the accessories. Here I'm working on the Katana Sheaths he has on his hips. And I just use a piece of watercolor paper to create the hilt, or not even the hilt, the bit that's under the hilt. You know the bit I'm talking about. I just use watercolor paper because I have it on hand and it is slightly sturdier than regular paper. So you can manhandle it a bit more and it holds up better with lots of layers of paint and stuff like that. And I create little handles for them. Now I create a little, I don't know what you call it, his hair, I guess? The little whale spout thing on the top of his head. I start working on that, which is just 2 curves, and I seal them together with a blob of paper mache. And then I build up the handles a bit more on the hilts as such. And then I glue them all together. When the glue's dried, I can turn over the Sooga and clear up the absolute mess that is on his back. And I start building up some of the ridges and muscle masses and bone structures that you can see here, including, of course, the gluteus maximus right there. That needs to be very accentuated. Yeah. Now I start working on the mask by just laying on a layer of paper mache and allowing that to dry. It's great, he has no facial features, which are always really difficult to get right. Now I have to do his hands. I hate sculpting hands. I think every sculptor hates sculpting hands. I start off by just doing a little triangle shape and then blending on the fingers. And I want these on this hand to be kind of curled round as such, because this will be the hand which is resting on the other hand, and then there's one hand which has his fingers straight out, because that hand is like, it's just based on what space the hand has to fill. I build out his thighs a bit more because he has really thick thighs. He does not skip leg day. Continuing to build out the behind. And now I attach on the little whale spout thing. Like that. And I build up these little triangle shaped things. I'm just using a compass or a pair of compasses to try and shape it out. You can literally use anything to shape out paper mache, which is great. Like whatever you have lying around, you can use it as a tool. You don't need expensive clay shaping tools, although they do help. I'll create these little eyeball shaped pieces, which are like what all the armor pieces are. And then there's this one with the actual eyeball in it, which will be for the main back piece. Now I go on to adding all the belts and straps using thin pieces of paper. I just wrap those round and then apply one of the eye-shaped pieces to the center and do a smaller eye-shaped piece on each side. I do large eye-shaped pieces on each shoulder and then do the shoulder straps that all go and converge in the center of the back. I then add the pieces to the side of each mask, as well the little horns underneath. Then I create this curve of paper, and I use that to create the large collar on the side of his shirt. I add these triangles or like claw-shaped pieces for the metal spikes that come out of his shirt, and I start adding straps to his glove things, which are basically made out of like bandages almost. They're like just dozens of straps just going crisscrossing over each other in like with no rhyme or reason to it. So I just build this up using lots of tiny scraps of paper and just like forcing those down. The ones on the arm underneath were obviously a lot harder, so I only did like 2 or 3. You can't really see them anyway underneath all the spikes and all that. So it's not too big a deal. And I just keep adding more straps wherever I could see them in the references I was working off of. And then I build up his feet as such. Just, like he has like one big toe and then lots of little toes. It's like wearing the his big toe and little toes are defined from each other, but there's no other definition, I guess. I had some leg spikes as well. These are obviously pretty hard to attach because they'd almost defy gravity, so I just kind of added on a dot of paper mache and then just smushed them into it, and then blended that in as best I can. This is definitely the most detailed structure I've ever made out of paper clay. I add these little diamonds to his legs and then do straps around his legs as such. I just trim away the excess and then push it in. Do the same on the other side as such. This model I'm making it as a request from my friend. I love the Zelda art style, so I wanted to make something from the Zelda Breath of the Wild Hyrule Warriors saga of games, and I've never actually played them, so I asked my friend what characters he liked, and he told me to make this one, so shout out Xander for you. I add the eyeball onto, I make this base plate out of like cardboard, which is like an eyeball shape, because the Sooga seems to have a bit of an eyeball obsession. And then I just make sure everything is nice and unified by adding on a layer of tissue over the entire thing and just gluing that down. It helps everything feel like one unit rather than 2 pieces of cardboard stuck together. And I add all the paper straps around his legs in the same way that I did the paper straps on the arms. I just paper mache those down and stick them in place. I then add a dot of paper mache to the base of each foot and then just stick him upright on there and then prop him up while he dries. I add the swords to each side as well as the ribbons on his hair thing. Now finally we can get onto the painting. It was a long process to this point. So I mix some red and orange together to get this like almost ketchup red colour. When I'm applying it, I decided that this was a bit too bright of a red compared to what he wears, so I do mute this down with a dot of green, which I just mix in as such. It doesn't make a huge difference, but it does help mute everything down slightly. It should be quite bright because there does need to be a definition between the very muted sections and the non-muted sections, but it did feel a bit weird for it to be super bright. So I just go over most of the figure with red everywhere that, like, because he's a primarily red figure. So, like, anywhere that is red, I went over like that, including the hilts of the swords and the sheaths of the swords as well. I try to avoid going over areas that won't be painted red for the most part, just because it's annoying to have to go over stuff with other colours. Now I take a bit of that red colour and mix it a bit more green to make a more muted version of it, to go over areas such as the arms and like spots on the legs are also in this colour. I just go over all these areas. Basically, I just, like, any area that's brown in the figure, I go over with this brown colour here. I darken some grey because my grey was a bit too light for all the shield plates and straps and everywhere that is dark grey. I just go over all of those in this colour. Really, I probably should have gone darker with this, but because my grey colour does dry a lot lighter than it is for some reason. I go over the top part in a very deep black, and then I add little red details to the top part of the handle, as well as the darker brown spots going all the way down the sides of the hilts. I touch up the white around the mask, like in a nice bright white colour, just to make that look nice and clean. And yeah, I go over the white ribbon around I'm not even sure what that is, the pat hair thing. And then I add some details to the shoulder plates, which are just like eyeball drawings, basically. And then I touch up the white around the rim of the collar. And I go over all the metallic details, like the spikes on his legs and arms. I just go over in a nice metallic grey. And then I do a nice gold colour on the spikes coming down from the sides of his mask, as well as nearest the base of the collar. I do in gold also. I mix some blue and green with a nice metallic silver for the base. These are matte colours I'm mixing in with a metallic, which gives it almost like a faded look. I then add some details to the inner ear things of the mask, as well as drawing the eyeball image on the front. As such, I just draw it all out and just try and copy the figure as best as I can. These little triangles underneath. And then I add the grey outline, like a metallic outline, to the hilts as well as on the eyeballs, and I add some little like divots in metallic grey or silver, and then I just coat everything in a layer of matte Mod Podge to seal everything in it and give it a nice finish. And this is the final piece. This is definitely the biggest paper mache figure that I've ever made, and it is by far my favourite. I love it. I think it looks really cool. There's so much detail, and I think it looks really good. It's not perfect by any means, but I am super happy with this. So yeah, tell me if there are any other Zelda characters you'd like me to make. Apart from that, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye.